Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and this is a follow-up video to my previous two videos. The first one where I did frequency separation versus dodge and burn, and my last video which was frequency separation done right. This is now dodge and burn in depth in a sense. So if you want to know how I do my dodging and burning in Affinity Photo, stay tuned and we'll get right into it. Alright guys, welcome back. So we've got a lot to cover in this video, so let's just jump right in. First things first, I want to mention a comment that someone had posted asking me about the dodge and burn tools in Affinity Photo. So if you were unaware, Affinity Photo actually has dodge and burn tools. It looks like this little magnifying glass icon, and if we click on it, we can see we've got our dodge brush tool and a burn brush tool, and they're going to do pretty much exactly what you think they're going to do. With your image layer selected, using the dodge, and let me just bump this to 100%, that's going to brighten. Now obviously this is way too harsh, so we would normally do like a 2% flow brush, and then you can slowly build up your brightening. And if you want to burn, you can select the burn tool, and that is going to darken. You also have some controls up here to kind of select which area you want to affect. So with the burn tool, I want it to affect just the shadows, so it's probably going to do a bit harder job on the shadows. You can also have the protect hue, because I notice sometimes when it's really harsh without it, the colors can kind of shift a little bit. It's not a perfect tool, but I think in a pinch, if you're just doing a bunch of images really quick and you just want to come in here really fast and do a few quick adjustments, like, you know, lighten up that part of the side of her head, or fix this little spot on her nose, maybe darken this part of the cheek here, and then you're moving on to the next image, that's probably fine. One of the things I don't like about this is it only works on the actual image layer. So if we make a brand new layer, like a blank layer, to work non-destructively, it doesn't work. It has to be painted on an actual an image layer. So that means that you can't easily correct your mistakes. If I want to come in here and erase what I did, it's just going to erase the actual image. You can get around that by taking your empty pixel layer, using your paint bucket, fill it with 50% gray, and then switch that to overlay, and then you can use your dodge and brush tools on top of that. So let's just say, for example, I want to brighten up her cheeks like so, and then I want to darken the edges of her nose like this. All right, and then you can see here by holding down Option and clicking on the thumbnail, it's going to show me just that layer. You can see where I painted. This is my dodge, this is my burn, and you're able to now work non-destructively. You can do your little before and afters like that, and you still have the eraser problem because you can't come in here and erase, because if you do come in here and erase, you are actually just erasing that image. So in order to erase, in a sense, you have to take a paintbrush, also at 50% gray, and just paint back in. That is how you kind of erase, in a sense. So I just don't think it's a very efficient way to do dodging and burning. I gotta actually undo all this now because we painted on the actual layer. So what I'm going to do is I want to show you, this is kind of the preferred method all across the board for most retouchers and professional photographers, is just using curves to do your dodging and burning. So what I want to do first is I want to show you how I set that up. You've probably seen it in my other videos. If you have, you can skip this part and I'll put the part where we talk about what we're dodging and burning. But if you haven't and you want to see how I set up my dodge and burn, just keep on watching. So pretty simple. We're going to create two curved layers. Let's do one curved layer. Let's make another one. Have two. And you can put these in any order you want, but I'm going to start with this one here. And this is going to be my dodge. So I'm going to bring this curve up somewhere around here, I guess. It's kind of like, I know I'm not going to go this bright, so I'm not going to go that high. But if I just do like this, it's going to be too little. So somewhere around here is fine. And also when you're doing it around this range, The curves doesn't affect the saturation too much. If we come up here, you'll notice the saturation really there's a big shift in saturation, especially when we start going dark, things get really dark and saturated. So by just doing a little bit like this, it's not going to affect the saturation too much. We're going to invert that. We're going to call that dodge. And we're going to do the same thing here, but this time we're going to pull it down to make our dark. So this is going to be our burn layer. And same thing, I don't want to go too far because you'll notice things just get way too dark. And I know I'm not going to go that dark. So maybe we're going to do something kind of around here. And we're going to invert that. Now, the cool thing about curves is that you kind of have this natural kind of smooth gradation. You can notice that it's not going to be affecting the brights too much or the darks too much, just that part where we put that anchor point. So it can give really smooth transitions and look really natural when you're painting with this. All right, and let's just call this burn. Now, I do have another little tip that's going to depend on your image, I guess, is a lot of times, especially with burn, you have to be careful. You notice that when I get really dark, actually uninvert that. When I get really dark, you'll notice that the colors just get really saturated. They look darker, so to our eye, it may not feel as colorful. So the human eye usually perceives things that are brighter as to be more colorful, which in a sense kind of makes it look more saturated, when actually it's not in a sense. So this may look like, if you look at her lips, this may look, wow, her lips are super saturated, they're really bright. But in actuality, like, as far as the color goes, this dark red is actually more saturated. It's just darker. But because it's brighter here, our eyes perceive it as being more colorful. So when you are doing a lot of this, sometimes if you're doing some really heavy dot burning, you're going to notice that your colors are going to start to get a bit more saturated, which means if you're trying to lighten up something or darken up something, you might notice that you might start getting a bit more red than you want. You can fix that by changing your blend mode to luminosity. And what that's going to do is it's just going to affect the luminosity and it's not going to affect the saturation of the image. You can kind of notice there's a bit of a difference here, right? Like, it may look funny to our eye, but I guess theoretically, the saturation in the image has not changed so much, whereas if it's at normal, the saturation levels change with the curves. But if you're around this little area, I think those saturation shifts are not that drastic, but there definitely are times when I will see some saturation shifts and I will switch my blend mode to luminosity. But for now, let's just leave it at normal. Okay, we got that. Let's re-invert that. And now we have our dodge and burn layer. Now, when we're dodging and burning, there's two other things I like to do. I like to create some helper layers, and these are going to help me identify the parts that I want to dodge and burn. So the first thing I want to do is make a brand new fill layer. We're going to go with the layer, new fill layer, and we're going to change this color to black. So if you weren't unaware, because I wasn't for a long time, is if you click on this arrow icon, then you can come over here and change the color of your fill layer. If you're on any other tool, like your brush tool or something, you can't. Like, the color doesn't change on the fill layer. If you're on your clone stamp tool, nothing changes. But if we select the little arrow, then we can now change the color of our fill layer. So we want to have that set to black, and then we're going to set this to color. And this is going to give us the best representation, the best tonal representation of our image in black and white. This is going to make it a lot easier for us to see tonal differences that we want to correct with dodge and burn without being distracted by color. Now, for me, another thing I like to do is to help me see these tonal differences even better is I'm going to create a very hard contrast curve, something like this. And it's going to vary from image to image. You can kind of tweak it because depending on image, how bright or dark your image is. But maybe something like that. And you'll notice we have very harsh contrast, but it makes it easier to see the dark areas we want to fix and the bright areas that we want to fix. And then what I'm going to do, let's actually grab these two helpers, group them together. I'm going to call them helpers. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my dodge and burn. We're going to group those together. And we're going to call that dodge, or DB, how that DB, dodge and burn. Okay. All right, let's turn these helpers off for now. So dodging and burning. Well, what are we doing when we're dodging and burning? What do we want to try to accomplish? Actually, so I feel there's two types of dodging and burning. I guess three types in a sense, but we'll say two types. There's the corrective retouching part of dodge and burn, where you're just actually correcting things. And then there's the more creative dodge and burn, which is kind of like contouring, where you're adding highlights and adding shadows to create more depth in the face. And you can actually kind of reshape the face a little bit just by using contouring, dodge and burn. By adding shadows or taking away shadows, you can create depth and things like that. So the first thing we're going to look at is the retouching portion of dodge and burn. That's going to be the corrective part, where we're going to be fixing things that we kind of want to, I guess, fix in a sense. So let's look at this image here and let's ask ourselves, what do we think needs to be corrected? So it's going to help if I turn my helper layers on. It's going to really make it easy for me to identify things that I want to fix in this image. So let's take a look here, and right off the bat I can see areas in the face which I think need to be kind of evened out. So what I'm looking for when I'm dodging and burning, I'm looking either at light patches that are surrounded by dark areas, or dark areas that are surrounded by light areas. Things that kind of stand out. So for example, right off the bat, I can see this dark spot on her nose. We can imagine that this nose line should just kind of smoothly come down here. There's even a little bit of a gap. You can kind of see it's dark here, but it's light like right in the middle. And so what I want to do is I want to even that out. Maybe darken this up a bit here and then lighten this up so we get a nice just shadow that's going to really make that look good. If you've noticed, if you watched my other frequency separation video, you notice we corrected some things on the cheek. So for example, we've got these three kind of like shadow lines here that we want to lighten up to fix that because they're kind of distracting. We also have some bigger elements, like for example here, this kind of harsh shadow on the side of her head. This may just be the shadow from her hair. I've got a strobe hitting here. It just could be, I don't know what it could be, but it's kind of distracting. We've got a little bit of darkness under the eyes right around here, and then we've got some inconsistencies in the chin, and then you can kind of see like this just probably could be a bit smoother. Also we've got this part of her cheek which is lighter than the rest of the part. So that's what I mean. We have this dark area, but then we have this one light patch, and over here we have this big light area, but there's this big dark patch in the middle. So these are the things that you're looking for when you want to dodge and burn, at least in the corrective step. Even on the smaller level, you've got a dark spot here and you've got a light spot here. So that's what we're looking for when we are correcting. Now, with that said, there are, I think, two ways to do this when you're doing your dodge and burn. There is the kind of global way where I can just work at about this size. And let's switch to a low flow brush, 2%. We're painting with white so that we can reveal the mask underneath. And for example, we start with this. I'm just going to come in here with my white brush on my dodge layer, and I'm going to slowly build up my curves adjustment. That's going to be brightening the image, and do something like that. You see what we did? And if we turn our helpers off, it still looks pretty natural. There might be a little bit of color shift, and in this image there's not so much, but if you feel like the colors shifted too much, you can switch over to luminosity. But in this image there's almost no color shifting at all, so it's okay. So that's what we can do at this scale. Same with the nose. We can probably fix the nose at this level as well. Come here and just brighten up the nose. And we talked about that little that little light area in the middle that we can try to fix. So we're going to switch to a burn. Maybe just come here and actually just darken that a little bit, just to kind of help even out the shadow. And maybe come and just lighten it a bit more here. And just like that, we have corrected that little spot on her nose. And it's kind of, yeah, it's just kind of, it hasn't changed the image at all. It hasn't changed her face, but it just kind of fixed things a little bit. So this is like what we can do when we're dodging and burning on a bigger scale. Just like this this light spot on the cheek, pretty easy to come in here with a big brush and just kind of slowly darken it. Maybe even lighten up some of this part here. And voila. Just like that. We fix that. And I mean, that looks really good, I think. And especially when you're working on this large scale, it can look really natural. And that's why we're using a low flow brush, because you can look at my layer here. If I hold down Option and click the thumbnail, you can see where I did my dodging, and this is where I did my burning. It's kind of very smooth transitions by using the low flow brush. So that's one way. Another way is something they call micro dodging and burning. And this is where, what it sounds like is, say I want to clean up some of this texture here on her cheek. It's going to be hard to do with a bigger brush, so I'm actually have to come in pretty close and do exactly what you think. I'm going to micro dodge and burn with a small brush and doing my burn. I'm going to come in here and start darkening up some of all these little darker patches, like so. And let me just do this for a few seconds, and then I'll show you the after. And then same thing, we're going to take a burn. We're going to look for some lighter patches that are surrounded by dark areas, and we're going to burn here. Let's burn that. Those 3 lines we talked about earlier, we can come in here with the dodge to brighten up those areas and do something like this. All right, and all I'm looking for is patches that are surrounded by not matching patches, in a sense. Like we've got these little white spots that I figure if I can make them a bit darker, it's going to help blend the surrounding area. Even down here, it's kind of bright. It's bright here. And let's do a little more, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. As you can see already, this is going to be a lot more of a time-intensive process. It does look really fantastic, and if you do it really well, it can look really natural, but it's just going to take a lot more time. So let me just go ahead and turn this off and on. You can kind of see. So you can see there, we kind of really smoothed out her cheek without affecting too much of the texture. You can see, I mean, we've still got all of her pores intact, and we can still see we've got the natural skin texture, but we've just kind of smoothed out a little bit of the kind of bumpiness. Now, it's important to realize or to think about what your final output is going to be, because if you're going to upload this to Instagram and you're looking at an image that's going to be like this on a phone, you can barely, I mean, even on my computer screen, my 27-inch screen, I can't even see those last adjustments I did. But if you know that this is going to be printed out something large on a magazine, maybe it's going to be a poster, maybe it's going to be a billboard or something, then I think it is worth taking the time to come in here and micro dodge and burn. And so micro dodging and burning is great for little areas like this, where we can really see we've just got lots of little bumps, dark spots and light spots, where you can just come in here and try to dodge the dark spots. And while even at this level, you can still do bigger ones. Like I'm going to go ahead and just lighten up this darkness, the dark patches under her eyes. Same thing over here. I do recommend that even when you are working this small, to constantly zoom out, zoom in, because a lot of times you won't see things when you are that close. You're so zoomed in, you don't actually see that. And a lot of times, like I said, it's really important to figure out what your final output is going to be. If you know for certain no one's going to ever see your image this close, then why spend the time to micro dodge and burn? When I upload photos to Instagram, sometimes I like to do the full image, so you'll see it kind of like this, and then maybe you'll swipe right, and then I'll have 100% zoomed in image, so you can see the skin detail that I actually did. So that is micro dodging and burning and global dodging and burning, and just that little bit we did actually made quite a difference, right? You can kind of see like we did make a big difference. Some other things to look out for when you are dodging and burning, I can see right off the bat, is you'll often see sometimes people will have these kind of just darker areas on the side of their mouth, And that's a pretty easy fix, just we're using the dodge. Just gonna kind of come in here and just lighten them up a little bit so they're less distracting. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to eliminate distracting elements. You can get really creative and you can change someone's total face shape by using dodge and burn only, but we're not trying to do that, at least not at this step. We're just trying to fix what we think are the bigger distractions. Maybe I feel this area over here is a bit too dark. Just with a big brush, just gonna come and lighten it up a little bit, just like that. And maybe mix in a little bit of micro dodging and burning. Just kind of come in here with the darker spots and do things like this, right? And then again here, really quick on the chin, we've just got, I'm just gonna come in really fast, just gonna brighten up some of this dark patches on the chin here. And that's gonna be, actually that looks all right already. So dodging and burning, this retouching, dodging and burning, you are going to take it as far as you want. If you want the skin to look more natural and have more and more texture, you'll do less dodging and burning. If you're going for a super high fashion beauty look where the skin needs to look smooth and flawless, then you're gonna spend a lot of time probably doing a lot of micro dodging and burning. But the end results, if you take your time and do it correct, should look fantastic. So let's take a look at what we've got so far. Turn these helpers off. And there we go. This is our retouched dodge and burn. There's still, of course, a lot of work we could still do on it, but for this video, I think you get the idea of what we are doing with dodging and burning here. So I want to look at the other part of dodging and burn, which I call the contouring dodging and burning. And this is what we're actually going to do. We're going to be a little bit more artistic and a bit more creative, and we're going to add some depth to her face using dodge and burn. So we can do this again. I'm going to go ahead and make 2 new dodge and curve layers. So there we go. It's going to be dodge. We're going to do the exact same thing. Invert that. And I guess you can call this contour dodge, just so we can differentiate from the other one. And same thing, curves, do this. Maybe I'll go a little darker just for fun. And of course I can always readjust this later. And invert, and we will call this contour burn. And let's just group those together to make it easier for us to see. And I can call it contouring. All right. So what exactly is contouring? Well, contouring is, and if you ask probably most women who do makeup, they are familiar with this term. Contouring is basically using shadow and light to kind of create depth. A very easy example would be something like here on the nose. If we go back to our big paintbrush, let's see, let's use a red color, pink color. And what it basically means would be like adding highlight here and then adding shadow here. And what that's going to do, it's going to give the impression of the nose kind of being out more and protruding out more by adding highlights around here, like on the cheek. It's going to, maybe the chin, it's going to kind of present like higher cheekbones. And we can even recess things by adding shadow. If I add some shadow here, it's going to recess the eyes and make them pop a bit more. So that's what contouring is. And we can do that with dodge and burn just by doing exactly how we were doing before, but this time we're kind of being a bit more like painterly. So grabbing a white brush, let's just do a few areas that I like to do a little contouring first. Is maybe just a little bit. Let's switch to our low flow brush. A little bit here on the nose, just brighten the nose up a bit. Maybe add some highlight here on the forehead. And that kind of triangle I talked about earlier, we can kind of just put here on the cheeks to give that. Maybe a little bit down here on the chin. Also like to do a little bit on the lips, kind of makes the lips a bit more shiny. I'm going to do the eyes a little bit. Normally I would have a dedicated eye layer where I can really bump up the eye color or saturation, but for this I'm just going to put a little bit, make the eyes a little brighter with that. And if we look at what we've done, you can see this is what I did, and maybe I can kind of fill this in a bit better, kind of smooth. And looks like a mask. And when I turn it off and on, you'll see that we just kind of added a little bit of brightness in her face. And we can help to accentuate this brightness by adding shadow in the surrounding areas. So like I said earlier, if I use my burn now and we do a little bit of darkness here in the nose, it's going to kind of make the nose seem to stand out a bit more, have a stronger feature. I also like to put it around dark around the eyes, kind of just almost simulating like more eyeshadow, and it kind of helps the eyes pop out and stand out more if the surrounding area is a bit darker. I also like to just kind of make this area around the face just a bit darker because it's going to bring more attention to the center of the face. It's going to make the face look a bit smaller, more flattering, and something like that. And then the shadow on the side of the nose, maybe even shadow up just the part in the lip. That's going to help bring out that highlight on that lip. If we look at what we did, we basically did that, made it a little funny mask. And if I turn that off and on, you can just see I just darken that a little bit. And if we turn them all off and on, you can actually see it does make quite a difference. Like here, not that her face looks flat by any means, but by turning this contouring on, the face now has a lot more dimension. It's just got some really great dimension. And the great thing about working with layers is the opacity slider. If we feel I went too far with the highlights, I can grab this and bring it down. So a lot of times when I'm actually doing my contour dodge and burn, I actually go a bit overboard just so I can see what I'm doing. So for example, I might actually come in here and really go way brighter than I think I want to. Just kind of helps me see and visualize the changes I'm making. And then maybe the same thing with the derm. We're going to go burn, we're going to go dark, add more around the side of the head, maybe make here something like that. And now you can see those are really, really drastic changes, almost way too much, but that's fine because then I can come here with the opacity slider and bring it down to a level that I like and I think looks natural. I was just painting a bit overboard because it helps me see the changes that I'm making, and maybe that feels a bit more natural. So this is going to be our contouring, dodge and burn. Other things I like to do is the hair. You can add little highlights in the hair, take your dodge, and just these bright areas of the hair. You can come in here and add some highlights there in the hair. It just kind of adds a little bit of highlight. If you want to do it separate from the face, you can make a whole new, you could make a whole new curves layer and just say this is going to be just for the hair, and that way you have more control over just the hair. Maybe you really want the hair to actually, let's just go a bit overboard for now. You want the hair to actually be really kind of stand out and high contrasty like that. Something like this. And then we can see that little bit in the hair looks really neat, looks really cool. Other things you can do is, things like accentuating the collarbones a little bit. Here, you can't really see it in this image because of the crop, but a lot of times what I'll do, and just something that I think is worth mentioning, is that even just by adding a little bit of highlight on the top part of the chest and then putting a little bit of burn on the underside, it's just going to give a little bit the impression of almost like fuller breasts and have a bigger, more volume chest, which I think most women are not going to complain about that. You're not doing any liquefaction. You're not all of a sudden making really big boobs or anything. You're just basically adding a little bit of highlights and shadows that kind of help accentuate the shape of either things like the legs, the buttocks, the breasts, even here in the neck and stuff. We can come here and just highlight some of these bright areas in the neck, maybe the shoulder. You can also use dodge and burn to repair certain things. Even here in the chest, I can kind of see the outline of the top of her bra here. Maybe if I don't like that, I can just come in here with my dodge to lighten that. And same thing here. It looks like this might be the top of her bra. And yeah, for me, that might be a distracting element. For other people, they may not care. But just a little bit of that, I can kind of fix those lines there. So dodge and burn is not just for clothes. Not just for skin. You can use it on clothes, hair, other elements in the background to help bring attention or take tension away from certain elements. And that is my dodge and burn in depth, guys. So I know I kind of ramble on a bit about a bunch of random things, but I hope you're able to follow this, and I hope you have a good idea of when you are dodging and burning, what you should be dodging and burning. And one last thing that I do want to show you, I'm going to go ahead and delete all this. So you notice I was making all of my layers as we were going, but I actually have a macro set up for that I made. It's called my Retouch suite. I made it down here, and I do one click, and boom, I am set up for doing my retouching. I've got my cleanup layer, I've got my retouch, dodge, and burn already in a group. I've got my helpers that are turned off, I can turn them on. I've got my helpers come on, and I've got my contouring, dodge, and burn all in a group already. So one click, I am ready to go. I think what I'm gonna do is next video, I'm gonna do a little quick tutorial how to make these macros, and I'll also have this macro available for download if you wanna use it. But until then, thanks for watching. I think you guys know the drill. You can subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. I love reading you guys' comments, and I'll get back to you. And then I will see you in the next video. I've got some cool videos coming up in the future, so be on the lookout. And thanks for watching. All right, guys. See you next time.